There were yellow eyes in there, the sort of eyes he had always imagined but never actually seen down in the basement. It's an animal, he thought incoherently. That's all it is, some animal, maybe a house cat that got stuck down in there. Still, he was ready to run, would run in a second or two, when his mental switchboard had dealt with the shock those two shiny yellow eyes had given him. He felt the rough surface of the macadam under his fingers, and the thin sheet of cold water flowing around them. He saw himself getting up and backing away, and that was when a voice, a perfectly reasonable and rather pleasant voice, spoke to him from inside the storm drain.
"Hiya, Georgie,"
it said. Geordie blinked and looked again. He could barely credit what he saw. It was like something from a made-up story or a movie where you know the animals will talk and dance. If he had been 10 years older, he would not have believed what he was seeing. But he was not 16. He was 6. There was a clown in the storm drain. Hello Internet, welcome to Book Theory, and I hope you liked that little short excerpt from page 13 of the book. It's one of my favorites due to it being an amazing scene in the movies, both amazing and amazingly creepy. And you know how to set the tone of the video, sorta. Anyways, now this is more of a book review than a theory, so just stick with me here. You might actually want to read the book yourself.
if you dare.
Sorry, don't know what happened there for a second. Anyways, in honor of Spooktober, the book I have chosen is It by Stephen King. Now, despite this book being over 1,100 pages long, the payoff is actually pretty good. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the whole plot. Its story goes from two main time periods in the town of Derry, Maine. The first being in 1958 and the second being in 1985. You're probably wondering why two different time periods. Well, the 1958 time period is about the childhood of the Losers Club, while 1985 is adulthood for the Losers Club. Now, the Losers Club is made of 7 different people with 7 different backstories. First, we'll start with the leader of the club, Bill Denborough, a kid who suffers a stuttering problem. When he's an adult, he doesn't really suffer from that problem as much, but as an added bonus, he becomes a horror novelist author, much like Stephen King himself. Second is Beverly Marsh / Rogan, depending on the time period. Marsh being from when she was a kid, and Rogan from upon marrying a really crappy dude by the name of Tom Rogan. Third is Ben Hanscom. He's the architect of the group. Both when he was a kid and as a grown-up is a famous architect. When he's a kid, he's rather on the overweight side, but he was very quiet and smart. Fourth is Richie Towser, the comedian of the group, who later in life became a disc jockey, which is pretty much a comedian but for radio. He's always been a loudmouth, which would get him and the rest of the club in trouble with the local bullies. Fifth is Eddie Casbrick, the navigator of the group. He's the smallest of the bunch and the most worrisome. He suffers from asthma, both as a kid and as an adult, and he later becomes the owner of his own cab company in New York. Sixth is Stan Liuris. He's the thoughtful one of the group. He's Jewish, which caused him trouble again with the bullies, but he became a good accountant and unfortunately wasn't able to show up to the group reunion in 1985. And finally, Mike Hanlon, the historian of the group. He is the only one in the group that didn't leave Derry. He is fascinated with the history of this town. He also grew up to be the head librarian for Derry's public library, and he's the one that called the rest of the group to come back to Derry to fight it and kill it once and for all. They fought it in 1958, but were only able to hurt it pretty bad until it ran away, going back to sleep for another 27 years. The Losers Club had to come back in 1985 to defeat it for good, while trying to remember everything that happened back when they met it for the first time. Now that you know a little bit about the plot, there's more people for you to meet. The main bully, Henry Bowers. At first, he's your local bully. But throughout the book, he starts to go more towards the path of being a psychopath, wanting to kill the Losers Club. Even when they were kids, he wanted to kill them. He later ends up in a loony bin, aka an insane asylum. He then escapes so he can finish the job. Now, the main obstacle of the story, It. It takes many forms. It's more of a shapeshifter, changing into their worst fears. From Richie's werewolf, to Eddie's leopard, to even Bill's brother Georgie. It commonly takes the shape of Pennywise the Dancing Clown, aka Bob Gray. It feeds off the fears of kids, then actually eats them later on. This story is actually interesting in a sense that Stephen King loves to go into the backstory of everything, even creating flashbacks for the main characters as if it was already a more detailed movie. That might be the only downside to the book though. Stephen will go deep into the history, making entire chapters dedicated to one story that happened almost 30 years ago, but they are somehow connected to the current story. Also, if you've seen the movies, both the 1990 and the 27 reboot, then you sort of know how the main story goes. So that means that the book is more suspenseful and more detailed with its horror. Obviously, you also get to see more things in the book that the movies don't have. Like at the beginning of the book, there's a trial case of a kid that was murdered, then later is shown that he was killed, then eaten by it. I don't want to spoil everything for you, so you can enjoy and read the book for yourself at your own pace. Because definitely, you don't want to rush your reading. With this book, you'll probably forget things if you do rush. Overall, it's a pretty good book with a bunch of great horrifying, adventurous, and heart-wrenching moments. I highly suggest this book if you're willing to spend hours upon hours of learning the history of Derry while getting to know some pretty brave kids and to get terrified by it. Maybe you'll even find the braveness in yourself to defeat your fears like the Losers Club. So with that being said, happy Halloween and Spooktober. And that's just a theory. No. Come on, man. Not now. I'm just about to end it. No, I can't let you do that. Not now. Not now, no.
Vet snart nog blir invisible. You thought you could just forget about me throughout this entire video? Well, I'm here to change that. I'm here to stay, and you'll never see him again. I'm eternal. I'm the one you hear about in this world. I'm everything you... He's coming back. He's stronger than I thought. I have to leave soon, but don't you worry. I'll always be here. Just for you. See you soon.